Hello everyone, my name is Aisha and today we are going to talk about self-love, something very important, something which we are constantly neglecting. And what happens is eventually we reach to that point in our life where we feel ourselves exhausted, completely drained from inside, and we feel emptiness and we have nothing left behind to share with others, to give to others. And then we think, what has actually happened to us? So when we won't fuel ourselves with the amount of love we need, we would left empty at the end of the day. So we need to fuel ourselves with the enough amount of love so that at the end of the day, we have that to share with others, to give to others, and we have life in ourselves. Otherwise, at the end, we become lifeless. So logically, if you are not watering a plant, how can you expect that it will bloom a flower at the end of the period? Or how can you expect a cup which is empty to pour tea in others? Because obviously for pouring tea, the cup needs to be filled first, right? So similarly, being a human, we need to fill ourselves with self-love so that we have enough amount of love to share with others, to give to others when they need it. Okay? Most importantly, the misconception we all have in our heads is that we use the terminology of self-love and selfishness interchangeably in our heads. We treat self-love as a form of selfishness. We think that if I am performing self-love, if I'm loving myself, I'm being selfish. Well, that is not actually true. Okay? Selfishness is something that you are always prioritizing yourself on others, that you are not giving other people importance, that you are just looking at yourself. No one matters to you. You are not looking at anyone else. But self-love means that you are nurturing yourself with the amount of love so that you have enough to give to others. You are caring yourself so that you are energized enough, you are strong enough to care for others when they need it. So it is a form of, it is a type of yourself you are preparing so that you can love others as well. So how could it be selfishness from any aspect? Okay, first we need to change this mindset, and second, we need to understand that self-love is not just relaxing, it's not just gifting yourself, it's not just pushing yourself in the comfort zone. What we do is we always have this misconception that self-love means gifting ourselves, treating ourselves with the goods, but for the short-term pleasures, what we are actually doing with ourselves is we are pushing ourselves in that dreadful comfort zone, and we are not preparing ourselves for this real world. Real world is not just full of flowers, with just full of goodness. For surviving in the real world, we have to be strong enough. Have you ever noticed how a parent always do strictness with their children when they need it? For example, if they're not doing homework, or if they're just always consuming screen, they are having so much screen time, they always restrict them. They even scold them when they need it. Why? Because they want their long-term success. They want them to have long-term pleasures instead of those short-term boosts. And for having those long-term happiness, joy, healthy life, and I would say all the goodness, we need to avoid those short-term pleasures, and we need to restrict ourselves. We need to make ourselves disciplined. We need to work on our growth. We need to work on our health, and that is the actual amount of self-love. Self-love is not just gifting yourselves, giving yourself rewards. It is a form of love, but that is 20%. And for having that 20%, first you need to make yourself worthy enough to deserve your love. Yes. You know how in our lives we always show efforts for others, the people whom we actually love. We are always showing efforts to them so that they can feel the love from our side. Similarly, with ourselves, we need to do the efforts so that our body, our health, our mind can feel nurtured, can feel love from ourselves. Okay, and by doing these 80%, by making the discipline in our life, by by investing in our health, by investing in our skills, we are making ourselves worthy enough to achieve that 20% gifting and rewarding part. Yes, that's how we need to do this. That's how we need to plan this. And this is the point where we mistake. Usually we just fill our life with gifts and rewards and relax, and we justify it by saying that this is self-love. No, this is not. This is not self-love. Self-love is that you do exercise for the betterment of your health. You avoid so much screen time. You avoid doom scrolling so that you could not have the brain rot. You could not hurt your attention span to the point where it could not recover. Self-love is that you're reading to increase your knowledge. Self-love is that you are developing the hobbies which will actually make yourself skillful, and at the same time it will give you pleasure. So that is actual self-love. You're educating yourself, you're investing in your skills, you are working on yourself for the long term, so that when you look at yourself in the mirror, you are like that, yes, that is I am. That is the point where you feel yourself proud. You know how in our childhoods, when you used to get good ranks, good positions, and the school used to announce our names, and we used to go on the stage and hold that reward. The amount of fulfillment and the amount of proud we used to feel on ourselves, that is what we need to waking up again. And for waking that, we need to work on ourselves. That feeling is what drives self-love in us, and we need to do hard work on ourselves for achieving it. Okay, that is actual self-love. Secondly, self-love is about setting boundaries, either physically or mentally. It's about not letting the other people destroy your life or hitting your comfort zone. Okay, so by saying physical boundaries, I mean that from the people, you can create physical boundaries. You need to set that. For example, if someone is your colleague, or in the university place or college or school, wherever you go, or in your apartment or in the hostel or in your surrounding, any person from whom you can have that physical space, you can avoid that person physically, then you should go for that. Or in the other way, I mean by the mental boundaries, is that you need to create that mental space in your heart. Sometimes there are some people in our family or in the spaces where we can't avoid. For example, there could be any of your team member in your workplace whom you can't avoid. Obviously, you could not have anything which you want in the physical existence. So what you can do is you can work on the mental space with that person, or alternatively we could also say you can work on the detachment. And I have also made another proper skit on this topic, how to detach, and very detailed on the basis of my personal experience. So you can check that out further. So you can work on mental space, and you can set the boundaries. It is very important to set the boundaries. And most importantly, boundaries are not same for every person. Every person in your life deserves to have different boundaries. So the people who treat you in a particular way, you need to treat them in the particular area of boundary. For the other people who are the ones who have better space or better phase or stage in your life, you need to put them in the other boundary sector. And similarly for other people. So what I'm trying to say is that you can't have same boundaries, you can't have same perspectives, you can't have same attitude with every person. You need to differentiate it. This is the very important mistake which we do in our daily life, is that we treat every other person with the same scale of attitude. We have the same perspective. If one person has done bad to me to that specific aspect or to that some extent, it is not natural, or it is not obvious that everyone will do that. So on the basis of that one person, what I do is, like what we usually do is, we treat the other people with the same aspect, with the same perspective, that okay, that person is bad, so I'm treating that person bad, and I'll treat every other person bad. I won't give any space to other people so that they can they can hurt me or in any aspect. This is not okay. By doing this, we are creating a hard shell around us, and we are doing completely wrong. We are being unjustified to other persons, the people who are good, and also to ourselves. So it is so important to understand that we need to create different boundaries for every other person in our life, depending on the relationship you have with them, depending on their nature, depending on the amount of space you want to give to them. Okay. And thirdly, what we are usually doing is, we are not keeping the big chunk for ourselves. So yes, let's talk about this. The caption I have put on, that always keep the biggest chunk for yourself. And by saying the biggest chunk, I actually mean it. Biggest chunk is that always prioritizing yourself where it needs to. Again, I would say the same thing, that every situation requires different prioritization. You cannot set same prioritization list for every single situation of your life. Sometimes your parents require you the most, sometimes your friends require you the most, sometimes your academic requires you the most, sometimes your workplace. So you need to prioritize this accordingly. Sometimes you need to prioritize yourself as well. Okay? When you will prioritize yourself at the time where you need it the most, then only you will be able to prioritize others when they need it. It's the same theory you need to apply. Whatever the theory, whatever the concepts you're applying on the other person while treating them, you need to apply the same on yourself. Okay? We need to treat ourselves as, I am soul, and the soul and the body is different. The soul is the one who is thinking, who is planning, who is deciding everything, and the body is the one whom I'm treating to. So I need to treat it in a good way. Okay? And so what I said is, keep the biggest chunk for yourself, and I'm actually meaning it. If you have ordered a cake which you like, and now in the refrigerator you have 2 pieces left, and what we usually do is, we always give the bigger piece to the person we love, and this is the form of love we are showing to that person. First, by doing this, we have this burden, the expectation burden in our mind, that I am giving the best thing to other person and I'm expecting the same. Then when the time will come, the other person will give the best to me. And honestly, like in the practical world, people don't really focus that you have given them the bigger chunk, but you have this burden on yourself, and this drastically affects your mental health. So what you need to do is, you need to keep the biggest chunk. You need to take that. You need to keep it for yourself. By doing this, first you'll feel yourself loved, you'll feel yourself prioritized, and secondly, you'll be free from any expectations, because you are not keeping the biggest one for other. You don't expect that the other person will keep the biggest one for yourself, and that makes you feel out of any expectation, and that makes you feel like a free bird. And another most important thing is that when you treat yourself the love you deserve with the respect you deserve, you create that signals, that aura for other, that you deserve that respect, if any person needs to be in your circle, they need to give you that amount of love and that amount of respect, because you're giving it to yourself. You deserve it. That's why you're giving it to yourself, and you're expecting the same from the other person. And that comes out naturally. I am so sure that you must have experienced a room where a person walks in confidently, and every person gives them more respect. When a person is respecting their boundaries, their time, other people already, automatically start respecting their time. But for the people who take themselves very, on a very mere note, and who treat themselves very bare minimum, the people also treat themselves in the same way, right? And that is so specific with the girls specifically, I would say. So girls, you need to listen to this so carefully, that you need to respect yourself. You need to love yourself first if you want others to do the same. Because if you won't do this, then no one will do this for yourself. And that is it for today. Hello everyone, my name is Aisha, and today we are going to talk about